Nathan's hands were shaking as he tore open the wooden crate. Inside, a baby girl lay dying under the Texas sun, her lips cracked and bleeding. She reached up with both tiny arms and whispered one word, "Mama." For 8 years, Nathan had been a broken man, haunted by the family he couldn't save. But this baby, this abandoned child, left to die in the wilderness. She was about to give him something he thought he'd lost forever, a second chance. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss our emotional journeys. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you around the world. But to understand how one abandoned baby changed everything, we need to go back to where Nathan's story truly began, 8 years earlier, on the worst night of his life. The July sun hung merciless over Texas, burning everything it touched with the fury of a vengeful God. The July sun hung merciless over Texas, burning everything it touched with the fury of a vengeful God. It was almost the 8th year since the drought began, the 8th year of cracked earth and dying cattle, the 8th year of Nathan Cole waking up alone in a house that used to echo with laughter. He rose before dawn as he had done every single day for the past 8 years. The darkness of his small wooden cabin offered no comfort, only the familiar emptiness that had become his constant companion. At 45 years old, Nathan looked at least a decade older. Deep lines carved into his weathered face told stories of sun and wind and unspeakable loss. His dark hair, once thick and lustrous, now showed silver at the temples. And his eyes, those eyes that had once sparkled whenever his son Samuel ran toward him across the yard, now held a depth of sadness that nothing could erase. Nathan dressed in silence, each movement, mechanical, practiced through countless repetitions until they required no thought at all. He did not look at the cracked mirror on the wall, not because it was broken, but because he could not bear to meet his own gaze. The eyes of a man who had failed in the most sacred duty a father could have. The eyes of a man who had let his family die. Before stepping out the door, Nathan paused at the small table by the window. 2 photograph frames sat there, yellowed with age but carefully dusted every single day. The first showed his wedding portrait with Rachel. She was smiling radiantly in her simple white dress, her eyes full of hope and love. Nathan stood beside her, stiff as a wooden board, because he had been so nervous he could barely breathe. The second photograph showed Samuel at 2.5 years old, sitting on Copper's back for the very first time. The boy's eyes were wide with excitement, his small hands gripping the saddle horn, his gap-toothed smile bright enough to light up the darkest night. "Good morning," Nathan whispered to the photographs, just as he did every morning. That was all he allowed himself. A good morning greeting and a good night wish. Nothing more, nothing less. Because if he let himself think about them any longer, if he let the memories flood in without restraint, the pain would swallow him whole. He stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness. The ranch spread before him, a shadow of what it once had been. The Broken Spur Ranch had been his pride and joy, built with his own 2 hands alongside Rachel. They had dreamed of filling it with children, with laughter, with generations of Coles who would work this land and call it home. Now it was just Nathan, a few dozen head of cattle, and the ghosts of everything he had lost. Copper stood waiting by the fence, his copper-colored coat gleaming faintly in the starlight. The 12-year-old horse was Nathan's only true companion, now a silent witness to all the highs and lows of his master's life. The horse nickered softly when he saw Nathan approach, lowering his head so Nathan could stroke his neck. "We're checking the north water troughs today, boy." Nathan said, his voice rough from disuse. He rarely spoke to anyone except Copper these days. The neighbors had long since learned that Nathan Cole wanted to be left alone. They called him the Hermit of Willow Creek, not with malice, but with a kind of pitying sadness that Nathan hated more than outright cruelty. He mounted Copper and rode out along the fence lines, checking each post and each strand of barbed wire. The work was not strictly necessary. He only had a few dozen cattle left, hardly enough to require a secure fence. But Nathan needed the work. He needed the busyness. He needed something to fill the endless hours of each day so he would not have to think. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became oppressive. Nathan felt it searing through his faded shirt, burning his skin, even through the fabric. He stopped beside a water trough that was nearly dry, looking down at the thick mud coating the bottom. "Not enough water to keep the herd going through the week," he muttered to himself. But the truth was, he did not really care. If the cattle died, if the ranch failed, what did it matter? He had already lost everything important. This place was just a shell, just a reason to keep waking up each morning. He closed his eyes and the memories came, whether he wanted them or not. They always did in moments like this when his guard was down and his exhaustion was high. 8 years ago, a cold, dry October night, Nathan was at the neighbor's place helping old Tom Fletcher repair a barn roof that had been damaged in a windstorm. Rachel was home with Samuel cooking dinner, her famous beef stew that everyone in the county talked about. Samuel, 3 years old, was playing with the wooden blocks that Nathan had carved for him. The boy had his mother's eyes blue as a spring sky and his father's rare but genuine smile. "Papa will be home soon," Rachel promised as she stirred the pot. "Then we'll all eat together." But Nathan was not home soon. The roof repair took longer than expected. By the time he finally mounted Copper to ride home, full of darkness had fallen. He smelled the smoke before he saw the flames. "Copper, run." Nathan dug his heels into the horse's flanks, his heart already pounding before his mind could catch up with what his senses were telling him. When he crested the hill and looked down into the valley, his blood turned to ice. Their house was on fire. Not a small fire that could be put out with buckets of water. A roaring inferno that sent flames licking toward the night sky like the tongues of demons. Nathan jumped off Copper before the horse had fully stopped. He ran, stumbled, picked himself up, ran again. The sound of wood crackling, glass shattering, and through it all, cutting through every other sound like a knife through flesh, the voice of his son. "Papa, Papa!" Samuel was at the front window, his small face smeared with tears and soot. He was pounding his tiny fists against the glass, calling for his father. Nathan ran to the front door, but the flames had already consumed it. He circled to the back door, but that too was blocked by fire. Choked him, made him cough and gag. Samuel's son, "Papa's coming." He looked around frantically for something to break the window, found a wooden beam, ran toward the window where Samuel stood. But the fire moved faster than he thought possible. Just as Nathan raised the beam to swing, the roof collapsed. The roar of flames and breaking timber drowned out everything else. But Nathan still heard it, or imagined he heard it, his son's last word. "Papa." Nathan did not remember what happened after that. Tom Fletcher found him the next morning unconscious on the pile of ashes, his hands blistered and raw from trying to dig through the debris with his bare hands. Rachel was found in the kitchen. She had died of smoke inhalation before the flames reached her. Samuel was never found whole. Nathan opened his eyes, gasping, his hands trembling on the reins. Sweat poured down his face, though he could not tell if it was from the heat or from the memory. Copper whinnied softly, sensing his master's distress. "I'm fine, boy," Nathan lied, his voice hoarse. "Let's go. One more trough to check." They continued toward Willow Creek, or what used to be Willow Creek. The stream was nothing but a muddy depression, now a scar in the earth where water once flowed deep enough for swimming. Nathan remembered bringing Samuel here on summer days, teaching the boy to catch tadpoles, while Rachel sat on the bank and laughed at them, splashing each other. He dismounted his boots, crunching on grass that should have been green this time of year, but was instead brown and brittle as paper. He was leading Copper toward the dry creek bed when he heard it. At first, Nathan thought he was imagining things. The sound was too faint, too weak, like a kitten mewing from somewhere far away. He stopped, tilted his head, listened. There it was again. Not a kitten, a baby crying. Nathan's heart began to race. He scanned the area, searching for the source of the impossible sound. There could not be a baby out here in the middle of nowhere, miles from the nearest town. But the crying continued, weak and desperate. Nathan began to walk faster, his eyes sweeping across every bush, every rock, every patch of tall grass. Copper followed, ears pricked forward, as if he too was listening. And then Nathan saw it. About 20 feet from the dry creek bed, half hidden in the tall brown grass, sat a wooden crate, the kind used to ship supplies from back east. Nathan had seen many such crates at the train station in San Antonio. But what was one doing out here in the middle of the wilderness? The crate moved. A small fist punched through the gap between the wooden slats. "Dear God." Nathan ran. He fell to his knees beside the crate, his hands shaking as he tried to pry off the lid. Nails had been driven through the wood. Someone had deliberately sealed this crate shut. Nathan tore at the slats with his bare hands, splinters digging into his palms, blood staining the wood. He did not feel the pain, All he could see was that tiny fist still reaching, still fighting. The lid came off. Inside was a baby girl, perhaps 7 or 8 months old. Her skin was red and blistered from the sun. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her eyes were barely open, as if she did not have the strength to lift her lids. But when she saw Nathan's face looking down at her, she reached up with both arms and whispered a single word that shattered his soul. "Mama." Nathan could not breathe. For one terrible moment, he was back at the burning house, watching Samuel reach for him through the window, calling "Papa" with that same desperate hope. But this baby was alive. This baby was reaching for him. This baby needed him. "I've got you, little one." His voice cracked as he lifted her from that wooden coffin. She weighed almost nothing. "I've got you now." The baby's skin was burning hot against his chest. Her breathing was shallow and rapid like a wounded bird. She was dying of heat and thirst, and Nathan knew he had maybe an hour to get her help before it was too late. He mounted Copper so fast the horse startled. "Go!" Nathan kicked hard. "Run like you've never run before." Copper seemed to understand. The old horse found strength Nathan had not seen in years, galloping across the dry prairie toward town. Nathan pressed the baby against his chest, shielding her from the sun with his body, with his hat, with everything he had. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Just stay with me." The baby's eyes fluttered. Her tiny hand gripped his shirt like she was holding on to life itself. "That's it. That's my girl. You keep fighting." The ride to the town of Redemption was the longest 15 minutes of Nathan's life. Every second stretched into an hour. Every time the baby went quiet, his heart stopped until he felt her breathing again. "Please, God." It was the first prayer he had spoken in 8 years. "Don't take her too. Please. Not this one." Main Street was nearly empty in the midday heat. Folks had enough sense to stay indoors when the sun was this brutal. But Nathan did not slow down. He rode Copper straight up the wooden sidewalk, scattering the few people who were out, and jumped off right in front of Dr. Benjamin Shaw's office. "Doc." He kicked the door open. "Dr. Shaw, I need you now." Dr. Benjamin Shaw looked up from his desk, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. He was a gray-haired man with kind eyes and steady hands. In 20 years of practice, he had seen plenty of emergencies. But the sight of Nathan Cole bursting through his door with a dying baby made even him go pale. "Good Lord, Nathan. What happened?" "Found her in a crate by Willow Creek." Nathan was already laying the baby on the examination table. "She's been out in the sun, I don't know how long. She's burning up. Doc, you've got to help her." Dr. Shaw moved fast. He grabbed his stethoscope, checked the baby's heart, her breathing, her temperature. His face grew grimmer with every passing second. "Severely dehydrated. Heat stroke. Her body temperature is dangerously high." He looked at Nathan. "You found her in a crate?" "Yes, sir. Nailed shut. Someone left her there to die." Dr. Shaw's jaw tightened. "What kind of monster does that to a child?" "That's what I aim to find out. But right now I need to know one thing." Nathan's voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. "Is she going to live?" Dr. Shaw was quiet for a long moment. The baby whimpered on the table, her small body fighting with everything it had. "She's a fighter," the doctor finally said. "I've never seen a baby this far gone still breathing. But I won't lie to you, Nathan. The next few hours will tell. She needs constant care. Cool water, small amounts, rest, and someone watching her every minute." "I'm not leaving her." "Nathan, you can't." "I said I'm not leaving her, Doc." Nathan's voice broke. "I already let one child die when I should have saved him. I'm not doing that again. Not ever again." Dr. Shaw studied the cowboy's face. He had known Nathan for years, watched him shut down after the fire, watched him build walls so high nobody could climb them. But right now, looking at Nathan with that dying baby, Dr. Shaw saw something he thought was gone forever. Hope. "All right," the doctor said quietly. "Then let's get to work." The next 3 hours were a battle. Dr. Shaw worked with the focused intensity of a man fighting death itself. Nathan stayed by the baby's side, dripping cool water onto her cracked lips, whispering words of comfort, even though she probably could not hear them. "You're going to be okay, little one. I promise. You just keep fighting." The baby's fever started to drop around the second hour. Her breathing steadied. The angry red of her sunburned skin began to fade. And when she finally opened her eyes, really opened them, and looked at Nathan, something passed between them that neither could explain. She smiled. It was just a tiny upturn of her lips barely there, but it was real. Well, I'll be. Dr. Shaw shook his head in amazement. 20 years of medicine and this little fighter just proved me wrong. Yesterday she was knocking on death's door. Now look at her. Nathan could not speak. His throat was too tight. He just stared at that little smile and felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen solid for 8 years. She's going to need round-the-clock care for the next few days, Dr. Shaw continued, feeding every 2 hours, keeping her cool, watching for fever. I can help during the day, but I have other patients. You're going to need someone else to help you. Nathan nodded. I'll figure it out. No, you won't. A woman's voice came from the doorway. You'll accept help when it's offered, Nathan Cole, like any sensible person would. Nathan turned to see Emily Parker standing in the doorway. She was the town school teacher, a widow who kept mostly to herself. Nathan had seen her around town but had never spoken more than a few words to her. She was pretty in a quiet way with auburn hair and warm brown eyes that looked like they had seen their share of sorrow. Miss Parker, Nathan tipped his hat, I appreciate the offer, but this isn't your concern. A baby left to die isn't my concern. Emily stepped into the room, her eyes fixed on the tiny girl on the table. What kind of woman would I be if I walked away from that? She moved closer to the baby, and something in her face changed. Her breath caught. Her hand flew to her throat. For just a moment, she looked like she might turn and run. Miss Parker, Dr. Shaw frowned. Are you all right? Emily did not answer. She was staring at the baby with an expression that Nathan recognized all too well. It was grief, raw, fresh bleeding. I had a daughter, Emily whispered. Lily. She died when she was 6 months old. Fever took her. She finally looked at Nathan. I swore I would never hold another baby again. The pain was too much. Nathan understood. God help him, he understood completely. Then don't stay, he said quietly. I won't think less of you. Some wounds don't heal. Emily was silent for a long moment. The baby made a soft cooing sound and reached toward her, those tiny fingers stretching out asking for comfort. May I? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. Nathan nodded. Emily reached down and lifted the baby into her arms. The moment she did, something changed. The baby, who had been restless and fussy, immediately calmed. Her whimpering stopped. Her tiny hand wrapped around Emily's finger and held on tight. Oh! Emily's eyes filled with tears. Sweetheart. The baby looked up at her with those big blue eyes and made a sound that broke everyone's heart. Mama, Mama, Emily sobbed just once, a sound that came from somewhere deep and broken. Then she pulled herself together with visible effort and looked at Nathan. I'm staying, she said firmly. Whatever this child needs, I'm staying. By evening, word had spread through town about Nathan's discovery. Folks came by Dr. Shaw's office to peer through the windows, whispering to each other about the abandoned baby and the unlikely pair caring for her. That isn't right, said Martha Jenkins, the baker's wife, loud enough for half the street to hear. A single man and a single woman playing house with a baby that isn't theirs. What will people think? People should think about that poor child's welfare, Dr. Shaw shot back. He had stepped outside to confront the gossips. Not about wagging their tongues, but the whispers continued. Inside, Nathan sat in a wooden chair next to the baby's makeshift crib, watching Emily feed her from a bottle. The baby was drinking hungrily now, her small hands gripping the bottle like she was afraid it might disappear. She's going to need a name, Emily said quietly. We can't keep calling her the baby. It's not our place to name her, Nathan said. She belongs to someone. Someone who left her in a crate to die. Emily's voice sharpened. She doesn't belong to them anymore. She belongs to whoever loves her. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to call it her? Emily looked down at the baby, who had finished her bottle and was now fighting sleep, her eyes drifting closed, then snapping open again, like she was afraid to miss anything. Hope, Emily whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. I never got to see her smile, never got to hear her say mama, never got to watch her take her first steps. The baby in her arms cooed softly and reached up to touch Emily's wet cheek. Hope, Emily said, her voice stronger now. We'll call her Hope, because that's what she is. Hope that I thought I had lost forever. Hope that life can still be beautiful. Nathan nodded slowly. That's a good name. Hope yawned, showing her tiny gums, and finally let her eyes close. Within seconds, she was asleep, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. She trusts us, Emily said softly. She doesn't know any better. No. Emily looked at Nathan with those warm brown eyes. She knows exactly what she's doing. Children know who loves them. They can feel it. Nathan wanted to argue. He wanted to say that they were strangers, that this baby would be taken away soon, that getting attached was foolish. But he could not say any of it because the truth was he was already attached. The moment that tiny hand had reached up to him from that crate, something had shifted in his soul. What if we can't keep her? He asked quietly. Then we love her for as long as we can, Emily said, and we give her something to remember even if she's too young to remember it. We give her a foundation, a feeling, a knowing deep down that she was wanted, that she mattered. Nathan looked at the sleeping baby, at her peaceful face, at her tiny fingers still wrapped around Emily's. You're a brave woman, Emily Parker. No, I'm not. Emily smiled sadly. I'm terrified, but some things are worth being scared for. 3 days passed. Hope grew stronger every hour. Her skin healed. Her appetite returned. She started babbling and laughing and reaching for things with the curiosity of a healthy baby discovering the world. And every time she saw Nathan, she would lift her arms and say, Papa. She's confused, Nathan said the first time it happened, his voice rough. She's not confused. Emily was smiling. She knows exactly who you are. Nathan did not know how to feel about that. Part of him wanted to run. Part of him wanted to gather that baby up and never let her go. Part of him was still back at that burning house reaching for a son he could not save. But hope was not Samuel. And this was not the past. This was now. This was a second chance. Maybe. On the third night, Nathan was sitting on the porch of Dr. Shaw's office, watching the sunset over the dry hills when Emily came out to join him. She's asleep, Emily said, sitting in the chair next to his. Fed, changed, and out like a light. Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn orange and pink and purple. What happened to your son? Emily asked quietly. Dr. Shaw mentioned a fire. Nathan was quiet for so long that Emily thought he was not going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant, like he was talking about someone else's life. House fire. 8 years ago, my wife Rachel was cooking supper. I was outside helping a neighbor fix his barn roof. Samuel was 3. He was playing in the front room. Nathan's jaw tightened. I smelled the smoke before I saw the flames. By the time I got there, the whole house was burning. Rachel was already... He paused. She was gone. And Samuel, he was at the window. Calling for me. Papa! Papa! His voice broke. I tried to get to him. I tried. The roof came down. I couldn't reach him. Emily did not say anything. She just reached over and took his hand. They sat like that for a long time, 2 broken people, holding on to each other in the fading light. Some folks said it was God's will, Nathan finally said. I punched the preacher for saying that. Haven't been to church since. I don't think God kills children, Emily said quietly. I think terrible things happen in a broken world, and we have to find a way to keep living anyway. Is that what you did after your daughter? Emily nodded. I wanted to die for a long time. I truly did. But then I realized that my Lily would want me to live, to teach other children, to love again if I could. She looked at him. I haven't been able to, until now. Nathan understood what she was saying. He felt it too. This baby, this abandoned little girl, she was offering them something neither of them had expected to find again. A reason to hope. We should get some sleep, Nathan said finally. Tomorrow's going to be another long day. But as he stood to go inside, Emily grabbed his arm. Nathan, wait. He turned back. Earlier today, while you were watering the horses, a woman came by. Margaret Thompson. She works for Judge Edward Harrington. Nathan's face hardened. Everyone knew Judge Harrington. He was the richest and most powerful man in 3 counties. He owned the bank, the biggest ranch in the territory, and half the businesses in town. When Harrington wanted something done, it got done. No questions asked. What did she want? Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. She knows something, Nathan, about hope, about where she really came from. Nathan's blood ran cold. What exactly did she say? She said the baby belongs to the Harrington family. Emily's eyes were frightened. She said Judge Harrington paid a man to get rid of a problem, a baby problem. She said, if we don't give Hope up, the judge will destroy us. He'll take your ranch. He'll take my job. He'll make sure no one in this town ever speaks to us again. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steel. Let him try. Nathan, you don't understand. He's powerful. I understand perfectly. Nathan turned to face her, and in the dying light, Emily saw something in his eyes that had not been there before. Fire. The same fire that had taken everything from him 8 years ago. Only now it was burning inside him, and it was pointed at anyone who threatened that baby sleeping peacefully inside. I already lost one child because I couldn't protect him, Nathan said. I'm not losing another, not to Harrington, not to anyone. He put his hand on Emily's shoulder. You with me? Emily thought about everything she had to lose. Her job, her reputation, her place in this town she had worked so hard to build. Then she thought about Hope, about those tiny fingers wrapped around hers, about the way the baby said mama and looked at her like she was the whole world. I'm with you, Emily said. Whatever comes, I'm with you. They went inside together, not knowing that someone was watching from the shadows across the street. A man in a black coat making notes in a small leather book. Judge Harrington's man. And tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning brought trouble faster than Nathan expected. He was in Dr. Shaw's small stable feeding copper when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to find Margaret Thompson standing there glancing nervously over her shoulder. Mr. Cole, she whispered, I need to speak with you. Now, before they find me. Nathan set down the feed bucket. You're the one who talked to Miss Parker yesterday. Yes. Maggie was a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back tight and the rough hands of someone who had worked hard her entire life. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying. I've worked for the Harrington family for 20 years. I've seen things, heard things, things that keep me awake at night. What do you know about Hope? Maggie looked around again, then stepped closer. That baby is the daughter of Miss Victoria, the judge's only child. Nathan stared at her. Victoria Harrington. Yes, she had a baby in secret 9 months ago. The judge was so ashamed. An unmarried daughter with a child. It would destroy his reputation, his precious name. Maggie's voice turned bitter. So he sent Victoria away. He told her the baby died during the birth. He made her believe her daughter was dead. But the baby lived. Yes. Tears streamed down Maggie's weathered face. The baby lived, and the judge, he paid a man to make the problem disappear. I heard them talking. Judge Harrington said, that child is better off dead than bringing shame to this family. I heard him say those words with my own ears. Nathan felt sick. Who was the man? The one the judge paid. I don't know his name. A stranger. The judge paid him $200 to take the baby far away and make sure she never came back. $200. That was the price of a child's life in Judge Harrington's eyes. The man was supposed to take her to another territory, Maggie continued, but something must have happened. Maybe he got scared. Maybe he got lazy. Whatever the reason, he left her in that crate instead of taking her away. He left her to die in the sun. Nathan thought about finding Hope, her cracked lips, her blistered skin, the way she had reached for him like he was her last hope in the world. That man is still out there, Nathan said slowly. Yes, and now the judge is looking for him, looking for the baby too. He wants to make sure there's no evidence, no proof of what he did. Emily had come out of the doctor's office, Hope in her arms. She had heard everything. He wants her dead, Emily whispered, pulling Hope closer. Maggie nodded miserably. I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner. I should have stopped it. But I was afraid. The judge, he is so powerful. He destroys anyone who crosses him. Why are you telling us now? Nathan asked. Maggie's eyes filled with fresh tears. Because that baby is innocent. Because Miss Victoria cries every night for the daughter she thinks is dead. Because I am tired of being afraid. She grabbed Nathan's arm. Please, sir, you must protect her. You must not let the judge take her. I have already made that promise. The door opened again and Dr. Shaw walked in. He took one look at their faces and stopped cold. What happened? Nathan told him everything. When he finished, Dr. Shaw sat down heavily in his chair. Judge Harrington, the doctor said slowly. I should have known. That man has had his fingers in everything bad that's happened in this town for 30 years. What do we do? Emily asked. We can't just wait for him to come after us. We find proof, Nathan said. We find the man Harrington paid. We make him talk. Then we have evidence, something that can stand up in court. Maggie was shaking her head. No court in this county will go against Judge Harrington. He owns the judges, he owns the lawyers, he owns everyone. Not everyone. Dr. Shaw stood up. There's a federal judge in Austin, Judge William Porter. He's been trying to build a case against Harrington for years but never had enough evidence. If we can prove Harrington tried to murder his own granddaughter, it would destroy him. Then that's what we do, Emily said, her voice stronger than Nathan had ever heard it. It won't be easy, Nathan warned. Harrington will fight. He'll use every weapon he has. Then we fight back. Emily looked at him at hope in her arms, at the determination burning in her eyes. I've spent years being afraid. Afraid to love, afraid to hope, afraid to fight. I'm done being afraid. Nathan felt something stir in his chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. All right, he said, we fight. That afternoon, Nathan made a decision. The doctor's office was too public, too easy to watch. If Harrington sent his men, they would know exactly where to find Hope. The ranch was safer, 6 miles from town, harder to approach without being seen. I'm taking Emily and Hope to the Broken Spur, Nathan told Dr. Shaw. Can you get word to Sheriff Morrison? Tell him what we know. Dr. Shaw nodded. Henry Morrison is a good man, but he's been under Harrington's thumb for years. I don't know if he'll help. He'll have to choose a side eventually. We all will. They left after dark, Nathan on Copper and Emily on a borrowed horse, Hope bundled safely against her chest. They took back roads, avoiding the main paths, listening for any sound of pursuit. Do you think they're following us? Emily asked when they were about halfway to the ranch. Probably. Harrington has eyes everywhere. You're not scared? Nathan was quiet for a moment. I was scared once, the night of the fire. I was so scared I couldn't move. That fear killed my son. Emily wanted to say something, but Nathan continued. Since that night, I don't let myself be scared anymore. Fear is the enemy. Fear makes you freeze when you need to act. He turned to look at her in the moonlight. I won't let fear take anything else from me. They reached the ranch as dawn was beginning to lighten the eastern sky. The small wooden house looked lonely in the dim light, a testament to years of solitude. But tonight it would be a fortress. Tonight it would protect something precious. You and Hope take the bedroom, Nathan said as he helped Emily dismount. I'll sleep on the porch. If anyone comes, I'll know. Nathan, you need rest too. I'll be fine. His voice was gruff, but his eyes softened when he looked at Hope, who was stirring in Emily's arms. She needs you more than I need sleep. Emily looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised them both. She reached up and touched his cheek, her hand warm against his weathered skin. When did you last sleep through the night without nightmares? 8 years ago, the night before the fire. Emily nodded slowly. Tonight, let me watch. You sleep. Emily. Nathan. Her voice was firm. You can't protect anyone if you're exhausted. Trust me. Hope and I will be fine. Nathan wanted to argue, but looking into her eyes, he found he could not. Not because he was tired, though he was, but because for the first time in 8 years, someone wanted to take care of him. All right, he said, his voice rough. Just tonight. That night, Nathan slept. No nightmares, no echoes of Samuel's voice calling for him through the flames. Just deep, dreamless rest. When he woke at dawn, the first thing he saw was Emily sitting by the window, Hope asleep in her arms, both of them bathed in golden morning light. His family, he realized with a jolt. This was what a family looked like. This was what he had lost and never thought he would find again. But the peaceful moment was shattered by the sound of hoofbeats in the distance. Nathan grabbed his rifle and went to the window. A single rider was approaching, moving fast. Emily, take Hope to the root cellar. Now. Emily did not argue. She gathered the baby and disappeared through the kitchen, lifting the hidden trapdoor that Nathan had built years ago after the fire when he could not sleep at night and needed to know there was always a way out. Nathan stepped onto the porch, rifle raised as the rider came into view. It was not one of Harrington's men. It was Sheriff Henry Morrison. The sheriff pulled up his horse and dismounted slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. Cole, I need to talk to you. So talk. Dr. Shaw told me everything. Morrison looked tired, worn down like a man caught between his conscience and his fear. About the baby, about Harrington, about what he did. And you here to take her? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, I'm here because I've looked the other way for too long. I'm here because that baby deserves better than what Harrington has planned. He met Nathan's eyes. I'm here because I want to help. Nathan studied the sheriff's face, looking for any sign of deception. He saw only exhaustion and something that might have been shame. What changed your mind? I have a daughter, Morrison said quietly. She's 12 now. And when Shaw told me what Harrington did when he told me that a man paid to kill a baby just left her in a box to die in the sun, his voice cracked. I couldn't stop thinking about my girl. What if it had been her? What if someone had done that to her? He straightened up. I'm done being Harrington's puppet. Whatever you need, I'm in. Nathan lowered his rifle. We need to find the man Harrington paid. Frank Dawkins, you know him. Never heard the name, but I can ask around, quietly. We also need to find the baby's father. William Turner. Harrington ran him out of town 2 years ago. Last anyone heard, he was working at a mining camp about 40 miles north. Place called Red Rock. Morrison nodded. I'll see what I can find out. But Cole, you need to be ready. Harrington is already making moves. He's got lawyers coming from Austin. He's talking about custody hearings and legal rights. The sheriff's voice dropped. He's not going to stop until he gets that baby, one way or another. Nathan looked back toward the house where Emily and Hope were hiding in the root cellar. Then I'll make sure he never gets her, whatever it takes. Morrison mounted his horse. I'll send word when I find something. In the meantime, stay alert. Harrington has eyes everywhere. I know. The sheriff rode away. Nathan watched until he disappeared over the hill, then went to get Emily and Hope from the cellar. As he helped Emily up the ladder, Hope reached for him with both arms. Papa, she said, smiling that toothless smile. Papa home. Nathan took her in his arms, felt her small body warm against his chest, and made a silent vow. He had failed Samuel. He had arrived too late, been too slow, lost everything that mattered. But he would not fail Hope. Whatever Harrington threw at them, whatever dangers lay ahead, Nathan would protect this child with his last breath, because she was his second chance, and he would not waste it. 3 days passed after Sheriff Morrison's visit, and nothing happened. No riders appeared on the horizon. No threats arrived in the mail. No sign of Judge Harrington or his men. The silence was more unnerving than any attack would have been. Nathan kept watch from dawn until dusk, his rifle always within arm's reach. He checked the perimeter of the ranch twice a day looking for signs of surveillance. He reinforced the locks on the doors and showed Emily the escape route through the root cellar, the tunnel that led to an old well shaft behind the barn. If anything happens, he told her, you take Hope and you run. Don't wait for me. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you behind, Emily said firmly. You will if it means keeping her safe. But as the days stretched on without incident, something unexpected began to happen. In the space between fear and waiting and the quiet moments when the sun set golden over the dry hills, life started to bloom again in the old ranch house. Hope was recovering fully now. The blisters on her skin had faded to nothing. Her appetite was voracious, and she seemed to be making up for all the meals she had missed while lying in that wooden crate. She crawled everywhere, exploring every corner of the house with the fearless curiosity of a healthy baby discovering her world. And every time she saw Nathan, her face would light up like the sunrise. Papa, she would squeal, lifting her arms toward him. Papa, Papa. The first time it happened, Nathan had stood frozen, his heart caught somewhere between joy and terror. She's confused, he said, his voice rough. She doesn't know what she's saying. Emily looked at him with those knowing brown eyes. She's not confused, Nathan. She knows exactly who you are. She knows you saved her life. She knows you're the one who holds her when she's scared. Emily touched his arm gently. She knows you love her. Nathan wanted to deny it. He wanted to maintain the walls he had built around his heart, the protective barriers that had kept him from feeling anything for 8 long years. But every time Hope reached for him, every time she smiled that toothless smile, another brick came tumbling down. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Nathan sat on the porch with Hope in his lap. The baby was babbling happily, grabbing at his shirt buttons, occasionally looking up at him with those big blue eyes as if to make sure he was still there. Emily came out with 2 cups of coffee and sat beside them. "She loves you," Emily said quietly. "Look at how calm she is with you." "She's perfect." Nathan's voice was thick with emotion. "I can't believe she's real. I can't believe she survived." "She survived because of you." Nathan shook his head. "She survived because she's a fighter. I just happened to be there." "No," Emily's voice was firm. "It wasn't coincidence, Nathan. It was fate. That baby was supposed to find you, and you were supposed to find her." She reached up and touched his face, her hand warm against his weathered cheek. Nathan flinched at the contact, not from pain, but from something far more frightening. Intimacy, connection, the terrifying possibility of caring for someone again. "You're a good man, Nathan Cole," Emily said softly. "Better than you know. And whatever happens with Harrington, whatever happens tomorrow or next week or next year, that little girl is lucky to have you." Nathan looked down at Hope, who had fallen asleep against his chest. Her face was peaceful, trusting. She had no idea how much danger she was in. She only knew that Papa was holding her, and that was enough. "I can't lose her." Nathan whispered, his voice tight with emotion. "You won't." Emily's voice was fierce. "We won't let that happen, whatever it takes." They sat together in the fading light, the three of them, a family that had no right to exist, but did anyway. But far away in the grand mansion on the hill overlooking the town of Redemption, another kind of family was living a very different story. Victoria Harrington sat alone in her bedroom, staring out the window at the darkening sky. She was 22 years old with pale blonde hair and blue eyes that would have been beautiful if they were not so empty. Once those eyes had sparkled with hope and dreams of the future. Now they held only grief. For 9 months, Victoria had lived as a prisoner in her own home. Her father controlled every aspect of her existence. What she ate, what she wore, who she spoke to, where she went. She was not allowed to leave the house without an escort. She was not allowed to receive visitors without her father's approval. She was not allowed to write letters or read newspapers or do anything that might connect her to the outside world. All because she had fallen in love with the wrong man. William Turner had been a ranch hand on her father's property, a young man with kind eyes and calloused hands and a smile that made Victoria feel like she was the only person in the world. They had met in the stables where Victoria would sometimes escape from the endless social obligations her father forced upon her. William taught her how to properly ride a horse, how to care for the animals, how to find beauty in simple things. And somewhere along the way, they fell in love. It was secret, desperate, and completely real. They would meet after dark when the house was asleep and Victoria could slip away unnoticed. They talked about the future, about running away together, about building a life far from her father's iron grip. Then Victoria discovered she was pregnant. She had been terrified and overjoyed in equal measure. Terrified of what her father would do, overjoyed because she would have a piece of William forever no matter what happened. Her father found out 3 months into the pregnancy. Victoria still remembered the sound of his footsteps coming down the hall, the way he threw open her door without knocking, the cold fury in his eyes when he looked at her slightly rounded belly. "You have disgraced this family," he said, his voice quiet and deadly. "You have disgraced the Harrington name." Then he beat her. Not a slap, not a push, a real beating with the riding crop he used on his horses. Victoria curled into a ball on the floor, trying to protect her unborn child, while her father struck her again and again. "Please," she sobbed. "Father, please, the baby. That bastard child is no concern of mine." Another blow. "You will never see that stable boy again." Another. "And if I ever catch you trying to contact him, I will kill him myself." William was thrown off the property that same night. Victoria never got to say goodbye. She never got to tell him about the baby. For the next 6 months, Victoria lived in a nightmare. Her father kept her locked in her room, attended only by servants who were too afraid of Judge Harrington to show her any kindness. The only person who treated her with any compassion was Maggie Thompson, the older housekeeper who had worked for the family for 20 years. Maggie would sneak Victoria extra food, would sit with her at night when the loneliness became unbearable, would hold her hand while Victoria cried for William, for her baby, for the life she would never have. The birth came early in the middle of a cold December night. Victoria labored alone except for a midwife. Her father had hired a stern-faced woman who never smiled and never spoke a kind word. But Victoria heard her baby cry. She heard her daughter's voice, strong and healthy, filling the room with the sound of new life. "Let me see her," Victoria begged, reaching out with trembling arms. "Please let me hold my baby." They did not let her. When Victoria woke the next morning, her father was standing at the foot of her bed. "The child is dead," he said flatly. "Complications during the birth. It is for the best." "No," Victoria tried to sit up, agony shooting through her body. "No, I heard her cry. She was alive. She was—" "The child is dead," her father repeated, "and we will never speak of this again. As far as the world is concerned, you were away at finishing school. You fell ill and had to recover. That is the only story anyone will ever know." He turned and walked out, leaving Victoria alone with her grief. For 9 months, Victoria had mourned her daughter. She cried every night, muffling her sobs in her pillow so her father would not hear. She dreamed of the baby she had never held, imagined what she might have looked like, wondered if she had William's smile or his gentle nature. Her father had even shown her a grave. A small headstone in the family cemetery marked simply Infant Harrington. Victoria visited it every day, laying flowers on the grave of the child she believed was buried there. She had no idea that her daughter was still alive, until the night Maggie came to her room with the truth. "Miss Victoria," Maggie's voice was barely audible as she shook Victoria awake. "Wake up, I have something important to tell you." Victoria sat up, her heart immediately racing. "Maggie, what's wrong?" The old housekeeper sat on the edge of the bed, her weathered face streaked with tears in the moonlight. "Your daughter," Maggie whispered. "Emma, she's alive." Victoria felt the world tilt beneath her. "What? Your father lied. He paid a man to take the baby away and dispose of her." Maggie was crying openly now. "But the man didn't do it. He left her in a crate by Willow Creek, and a man named Nathan Cole found her." "She's alive, Miss Victoria. Your daughter is alive and healthy and being cared for by people who love her." Victoria could not breathe, could not think, could not process what she was hearing. "Alive," she whispered. "Emma is alive. Yes. I have to see her." Victoria threw off her covers and stood, ignoring the dizziness that swept through her. "I have to see my daughter. It's dangerous. If your father finds out—" "I don't care." Victoria grabbed Maggie's hands, her eyes blazing with a fire that had been extinguished for 9 long months. "My father told me my baby was dead. He made me grieve for her. He showed me a grave." Her voice broke. "He watched me cry, and he never said a word." "I know," Maggie sobbed. "I should have told you sooner. I should have—" "You're telling me now. That's what matters." Victoria pulled Maggie into a fierce embrace. "Help me, Maggie. Help me get to my daughter." "I will, but we have to be careful. Your father has men watching the house. We'll have to wait for the right moment." Victoria nodded, her mind already racing. For 9 months she had been a prisoner, broken, hopeless. But now, knowing that her daughter was alive, she felt something awakening inside her. Courage. She would escape this house. She would find Emma, and she would never let anyone hurt her child again. The right moment came sooner than expected. 2 days after Maggie's revelation, Judge Harrington announced that he was leaving for Austin on urgent business. He would be gone for at least a day, possibly 2. Victoria pretended to be meek and compliant, kissing her father's cheek as he departed, playing the role of the obedient daughter perfectly. The moment his carriage disappeared down the road, she began to prepare. Maggie had arranged everything: a horse waiting behind the garden wall, a small bag with clothes and money, directions to the Cole Ranch. "Be careful," Maggie whispered as Victoria climbed out her bedroom window in the dark of night, "and give that baby a kiss from me." "Come with me," Victoria begged. "My father will know you helped me. He'll—" "I know what he'll do." Maggie smiled sadly. "But I'm old, Miss Victoria. I've been afraid for too long. It's time I did something worth doing, even if it costs me everything." Victoria hugged her one last time, then dropped to the ground and ran. She rode through the night, following the route Maggie had described. The darkness was terrifying, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a possible pursuer. But Victoria did not stop. She could not stop. not when her daughter was waiting for her at the end of this road. Dawn was breaking when she finally saw the ranch in the distance. A small wooden house, a barn, a corral with a few horses. Simple and modest, nothing like the grand mansion she had grown up in. But as Victoria approached, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. Emily was the one who opened the door when Victoria knocked. The school teacher stared at the exhausted, disheveled young woman standing on the porch, and her eyes went wide with recognition. "Miss Harrington, please," Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "Please help me. I've come to see my daughter." Emily did not hesitate. She pulled Victoria inside, calling for Nathan, wrapping a blanket around the shivering young woman. Nathan came running from the barn, rifle in hand. When he saw Victoria Harrington sitting in his kitchen, pale and trembling, he stopped short. "You're the judge's daughter." "Yes." Victoria looked up at him with eyes that held no deception, only desperate hope. "And you're the man who saved my baby." "How did you—" "Maggie told me everything. How my father paid someone to kill her. How you found her. How you've been protecting her." Tears streamed down Victoria's face. "Please, Mr. Cole, I just want to see her. I just want to hold her once. I've spent 9 months believing she was dead." Nathan exchanged a look with Emily. They had known this moment might come, but they had not expected it to happen like this. "She's sleeping," Emily said gently. "But when she wakes up, you can see her." "Thank you," Victoria sobbed with relief. "Thank you." They waited together in the small kitchen, making awkward conversation, dancing around the enormous elephant in the room. Nathan told Victoria how he had found Hope by Willow Creek. Emily described how they had nursed her back to health. Victoria listened to every word, crying and smiling at the same time. And then from the bedroom came a small voice. "Mama, Papa." Emily went to get her. When she returned, Hope was in her arms, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Victoria stood frozen. Her daughter. Her living, breathing, beautiful daughter. Right there, just a few feet away. "Emma," Victoria whispered, using the name she had given her baby in her heart. "Is it really you?" Nathan exchanged a glance with Emily. "Emma Grace," he said softly. "Hope and Emma Grace. Both names for our little fighter." Victoria nodded through her tears. "Emma Grace Cole Turner, a name that honors everyone who saved her." Hope looked at the stranger with curious blue eyes. Then she smiled and reached out her arms. Victoria took her daughter. Her legs gave out and she sank to the floor, cradling Hope against her chest and weeping. "My baby, my sweet baby, you're alive. You're really alive." Hope patted her mother's wet cheek, confused by the tears, but responding to the love. "Mama," she said. "Mama." It was the first time she had said it to Victoria. The first time mother and daughter had truly met. Everyone in the room was crying. Even Nathan, who had not shed tears in 8 years, felt them running down his weathered face. "How?" Victoria finally asked, looking up at them. "How is this possible? My father told me she died. He showed me a grave." "He lied to you," Nathan said quietly. "He paid a man to take her away to make her disappear. But the man got sloppy. He left her in a crate by Willow Creek to die. If I hadn't come along when I did, she wouldn't have made it." Victoria looked down at Hope, at her perfect face, her innocent eyes, her tiny fingers gripping Victoria's dress. "He would have murdered you," Victoria whispered to her daughter. "He would have let you die to protect his precious reputation." When she looked up again, something had changed in her eyes. The fear was gone. In its place was something harder, something stronger. "What do I need to do?" Victoria asked. "Testify," Nathan said, "in front of a judge. Tell them everything. What your father did to you, what he did to your daughter, what he's been hiding all these years. He'll try to stop me. He'll try to discredit me. He'll say I'm hysterical, that I'm lying. Let him try. You've got witnesses now. You've got us." Victoria took a deep breath. Then she looked at Hope, who was smiling up at her with complete trust. "I'll do it," she said. "For Emma, for my daughter. I'll tell them everything." But their celebration was short-lived. 2 hours later, the sound of hoofbeats announced the arrival of visitors. Nathan grabbed his rifle and went to the window. His blood ran cold. A procession was coming up the road. Sheriff Morrison at the front, 3 of Judge Harrington's men behind him. And bringing up the rear, a black carriage emblazoned with a Harrington family crest. The judge had returned early, and he had brought an army. "Emily, take Hope and Victoria to the root cellar. Now." "Nathan, Do it. Emily grabbed Victoria's arm and pulled her toward the kitchen. Victoria clutched Hope tightly, her face pale with terror. He found out, she whispered. He knows I'm gone. Go, Nathan said. I'll handle this. He stepped out onto the porch just as the procession reached the ranch. Sheriff Morrison dismounted first, his face grim. Cole, the judge has a warrant. What kind of warrant? Search and seizure. Morrison would not meet his eyes. Judge Harrington has obtained a temporary custody order for his granddaughter. We're here to take her. Nathan raised his rifle. Not going to happen. The carriage door opened and Judge Edward Harrington stepped out. He was a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes as cold as a winter storm. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no, who had never encountered a problem he could not buy or bully his way out of. Mr. Cole, his voice was cultured, controlled with an undercurrent of menace. We meet at last. Get off my property. I think not. Harrington smiled, a thin slash that never reached his eyes. You have something that belongs to me. My granddaughter. I'm here to collect her. She doesn't belong to you. She belongs to herself and to the people who love her. How touching. Harrington gestured to his men. Search the house. Touch that door and you're dead. The men hesitated, looking at Nathan's rifle and then at the judge. Sheriff Harrington said, coldly, this man is interfering with a lawful court order. Do your job. Morrison stepped forward, his face a mask of conflict. Cole, I don't want any trouble. Just let us search the place. If the baby's not here, we'll leave. You know she's here, and you know what will happen to her if I hand her over. I know the law, and the law says the judge has custody rights. The law, well, Nathan laughed bitterly. You mean the law that Harrington bought, the law that let him pay a man to murder a baby? Morrison flinched. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Maggie Thompson heard Harrington give the order. His own daughter just escaped his house to tell us how he's been holding her prisoner for 9 months. And you want to hand an innocent baby over to that monster? I don't make the laws, Cole. I just enforce them. Then enforce this one. Nathan cocked his rifle. No one touches that child. The standoff stretched out seconds that felt like hours. Nathan against Harrington's men. One rifle against half a dozen guns. The math did not favor him, but Nathan had something Harrington did not have. He had nothing left to lose. Sheriff Morrison, Nathan's voice was steady. You have a daughter, don't you? What's her name, Sarah? Morrison's jaw tightened. Love my family out of this. I'm not threatening your family. I'm asking you to think about them. What would you do if someone tried to kill Sarah? Would you stand by and let it happen? Would you help the man who ordered her death take her away? Morrison was silent. His hand, which had been resting on his pistol, fell to his side. You know what Harrington is, Nathan continued. You've known for years. You've looked the other way because you were scared, because he has power, because standing up to him would cost you everything. Nathan met the sheriff's eyes. But some things are worth losing everything for. Some things are worth standing up for. Sheriff, Harrington's voice was sharp. I gave you an order. Morrison did not move. His face was a battlefield duty, warring with conscience, fear, fighting against something that might have been hope. And then slowly he turned to face Judge Harrington. No. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. What did you say? Harrington's face darkened. I said no. Morrison's voice grew stronger. This custody order is invalid. It was signed by a judge that everyone knows is in your pocket. It didn't go through proper channels. And most importantly, he drew himself up to his full height. I will not hand a baby over to a man who tried to have her killed. You dare? I dare, Judge. I've been too scared to dare for too long. But I'm done being your puppet. Morrison looked at Nathan. Whatever you need, Cole, I'm with you. Harrington's face contorted with fury. For a moment, he looked like he might order his men to shoot both of them. But he was too smart for that, too calculating. He knew when a battle was lost. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and deadly. Not by a long shot. He climbed back into his carriage. His men mounted their horses. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving only a cloud of dust behind. Nathan lowered his rifle, his hands shaking with the aftermath of adrenaline. Thank you, Sheriff. Morrison shook his head. Don't thank me yet. I just painted a target on my back, on all our backs. He looked toward the house where Emily was emerging with Victoria and Hope. What happens now? Now we fight, but we need more than witnesses. We need proof. Hard evidence that Harrington tried to kill that baby. How do we get that? Nathan thought about everything he knew. About Maggie, about Victoria, about the man Harrington had paid. The baby's father, he said slowly. William Turner. You said he was at Red Rock mining camp. If we can find him, bring him back, he'll have legal rights to his daughter. Rights that even Harrington can't ignore. That's 40 miles of rough country. If Harrington finds out you're looking for Turner, he'll send men to stop you. Then I'll deal with them when they come. Morrison nodded grimly. I'll stay here. Watch over the women and the baby. Dr. Shaw, too, if I can get word to him. Thank you. Nathan looked at Emily, who was standing on the porch with Hope in her arms. Their eyes met, and in that moment, no words were needed. Be careful, her gaze said. Come back to us. I will, his promised silently. I will. He left that night, riding Copper hard toward the north. The terrain grew rougher as he traveled, rocky and treacherous with few trails and fewer landmarks. Nathan rode through the darkness, guided only by the stars and his own determination. 40 miles. 2 days if he pushed hard. 2 days to find William Turner and bring him back. 2 days for Harrington to plan his revenge. Nathan stopped at a small roadside tavern halfway to Red Rock, hoping to get information about the mining camp. The owner, a grizzled old man with knowing eyes, studied him carefully. Red Rock about 20 miles northeast. But why would you be going there? Looking for a man named William Turner. Turner, eh? The old man poured Nathan a whiskey. Know him, quiet fellow, works hard, doesn't talk much. He leaned closer. Something's eating at that boy. Some heartbreak he carries around like a weight. You know anything about where he came from? Just rumors. Something about a rich girl down south. Her family ran him off. Broke his heart clean in two. The old man shrugged. He drinks too much some nights, but mostly he just works and keeps to himself. Nathan thanked him and continued on. The mining camp appeared late on the second day, a dusty collection of tents and shacks clinging to the side of a barren hill. Nathan asked around and was directed to a small tent on the edge of the camp. William Turner was sitting outside sharpening a knife. He was young, maybe 25, with brown hair that needed cutting and eyes that held a familiar sadness. When he saw Nathan approaching, he stood up, knife still in hand. Who are you, Nathan Cole? I've come from Redemption. Turner froze. Redemption. I have news about Victoria Harrington. The name hit Turner like a physical blow. His knife fell to the ground. Victoria. Is she okay? Is she hurt? What happened to her? She's fine. She's at my ranch. Nathan took a deep breath. But there's something else you need to know. What? You have a daughter, William. Victoria had your baby 9 months ago. Judge Harrington told her the child died, but he lied. He paid a man to get rid of the baby. But the man didn't do it. I found her in a crate by Willow Creek, nearly dead from the heat. Turner's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, staring up at Nathan with an expression of pure shock. A daughter, he whispered. I have a daughter. Yes, and she's alive. She's healthy. She's beautiful. Nathan crouched down to meet his eyes. But Harrington is trying to take her. We need you, William. We need you to come back and fight for your child. Fight? Turner's face hardened. Harrington threatened to kill me if I ever came back. I know. He has money, power, men with guns. I know. He could destroy me. Yes. Nathan put his hand on Turner's shoulder. But your daughter needs her father. Victoria needs you. Are you going to let fear keep you from them? Turner was silent for a long moment. Then he stood up, wiping the dirt from his knees. When do we leave? They set out that evening, riding hard through the gathering dusk. Turner could not stop asking questions about Emma. What did she look like? Was she healthy? Did she have Victoria's eyes? She has her mother's eyes, Nathan said. Blue as the sky, eh? And a smile that could melt the hardest heart. Emma, Turner whispered. Victoria wanted to name her Emma if she was a girl. We've been calling her Hope. Hope, Turner smiled for the first time. That's a good name, too. They were halfway back to Redemption when Nathan heard the sound that made his blood run cold. Hoofbeats, coming fast, from multiple directions. Turner, get your gun ready. They had just enough time to draw their weapons before the attackers emerged from the darkness. Three of Harrington's men, Silas in the lead, his face twisted with hatred. "Cole!" Silas shouted. "The judge sends his regards." Gunfire erupted. Nathan fired first, hitting one of the riders in the shoulder. The man screamed and fell from his horse. But before Nathan could aim again, Silas was on him, tackling him off copper and sending them both crashing to the ground. They fought in the dirt, fists and elbows and knees. Silas was bigger, younger, meaner. A punch caught Nathan in the jaw, sending stars exploding across his vision. "Where's the baby?" Silas grabbed Nathan's throat and squeezed. "Where did you send her?" Nathan could not answer, could not breathe. His vision was going dark, his lungs burning for air. "Let him go." A gunshot rang out. Silas jerked and fell sideways, clutching his arm. Turner stood over them, his pistol smoking. "Get away from him, now." Silas scrambled to his feet, blood pouring from the wound in his arm. The other uninjured rider was already retreating, dragging his wounded companion with him. "This isn't over, Cole," Silas shouted as he mounted his horse. "The judge will send more men. He'll send an army if he has to. Then I'll be waiting." Nathan struggled to his feet, every bone in his body aching. His throat was bruised, his ribs screamed with every breath, and he was fairly certain something was broken. But he was alive. "You okay?" Turner asked. "I'll live." Nathan looked at the young man who had just saved his life. "Thank you. You came all this way to tell me about my daughter. It's the least I could do." They found their horses and continued on, slower now, but no less determined. Every mile brought them closer to redemption. Every minute brought Nathan closer to Emily and hope. He would not fail them. He could not. They reached the ranch just as dawn was breaking. Emily ran out to meet them, her face pale with worry. When she saw Nathan bruised and battered but alive, she threw herself into his arms. "I was so scared," she whispered. "When we heard about Harrington sending men after you." "I'm here." Nathan held her tight. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Hope toddled out onto the porch, Victoria close behind her. When the baby saw Nathan, she squealed with delight. "Papa! Papa home!" Turner stared at his daughter, his living, breathing, beautiful daughter, the child he had never known existed until 2 days ago. "Emma," he breathed. Victoria looked up and saw him. "William," time seemed to stop. 2 years of separation, 2 years of grief and longing and unanswered prayers. And now, standing in the golden light of morning, they were together again. "Victoria." Turner took a step forward, then another. "I'm sorry, I should have stayed. I should have fought for you." "You didn't know." Victoria moved toward him, Emma reaching for her father from her mother's arms. "I didn't know. My father kept us apart. He lied to both of us." They came together, all three of them, a family reunited at last. Hope looked from her mother to her father as if sensing the importance of this moment, then smiled and patted Turner's face. "Papa," she said, "Papa." William Turner, the man who had lost everything, broke down and wept. Nathan watched from a distance, Emily beside him. He felt her hand slip into his, felt her lean against his shoulder. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "After everything they've been through, they found each other." "We found each other too," Nathan said quietly. Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Yes, we did." For a moment, standing there in the morning light, Nathan allowed himself to believe that everything would be okay, that they had won, that the nightmare was over. But he knew better. Harrington was still out there, still plotting, still dangerous. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of the final battle. 2 days after Victoria and Turner reunited, news arrived that changed everything. Sheriff Morrison rode up to the ranch with a sealed envelope bearing the stamp of the federal court in Austin. His face was grim as he handed it to Nathan. "It's a summons," Morrison said, "from Judge William Porter. Harrington used his influence to push through a formal custody hearing. It's scheduled for 1 week from today." Nathan tore open the envelope and scanned the contents. His jaw tightened. "This could work in our favor. Judge Porter can't be bought. He's been trying to build a case against Harrington for years." "That's true," Morrison agreed, "but Porter follows the law exactly. No favoritism either way. If Harrington's lawyers make a strong case for family rights, Porter might rule in their favor. We need more than testimony. We need hard evidence." Emily came out onto the porch, hope in her arms. "What kind of evidence?" "Documents, records, anything that proves Harrington paid to have the baby killed." Morrison lowered his voice. Maggie mentioned that Harrington keeps detailed records of all his transactions, even the illegal ones. He's arrogant enough to think no one would ever dare touch his belongings. Victoria stepped forward, her face pale but determined. I know where he keeps those records. In a safe in his private office, behind a painting of my mother. You know the combination, Nathan asked. Yes, it's my mother's birthday, the only woman my father ever loved. Victoria's voice was bitter. He thinks I don't know, but I've watched him open it dozens of times. Nathan exchanged a look with Emily. They both understood what Victoria was suggesting. It's too dangerous, Turner said immediately. Victoria, you can't go back there. If your father catches you, I have to. Victoria took his hands in hers. My father has hurt too many people. He tried to kill our daughter. He beat me. He imprisoned me. He destroyed countless lives to protect his precious reputation. Her eyes blazed. I will not let him win. I will not let him take Emma from us. Then I'm going with you, Emily said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Emily, no. Nathan's voice was sharp with fear. Two people are better than one. We can watch each other's backs. Emily met his eyes steadily. I'm not asking for permission, Nathan. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to lock her in the house and throw away the key, but he saw the determination in her face, the same fierce protectiveness that had made her stay when she could have walked away, and he knew she would not be swayed. If anything goes wrong, you run. Both of you. Don't wait. Don't look back. Just run. I promise, Emily said. Victoria nodded. They spent the next 2 days planning every detail. Nathan, Turner, and Morrison would approach the Harrington mansion from the front, pretending to seek a peaceful negotiation. While they kept the judge and his men distracted, Emily and Victoria would slip in through the servants' entrance at the back, make their way to the office, and retrieve the records from the safe. The servants will be loyal to my father, Victoria warned. We'll have to be careful not to be seen. What about Maggie? Emily asked. She's gone. She left the night I escaped, headed for her sister's place in New Mexico. Victoria's voice was sad. She knew my father would punish her for helping me. The night before the operation, Nathan could not sleep. He sat on the porch staring at the stars, his rifle across his knees. Emily found him there just past midnight. You should be resting, she said, sitting beside him. Can't sleep. Worried about tomorrow. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. I'm worried about losing you. Emily turned to look at him, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. Nathan, his voice cracked. I don't think I could survive losing you too. Emily took his hand, interlacing her fingers with his. You're not going to lose me. You don't know that. No, I don't. She squeezed his hand. But I know that some things are worth risking everything for. Hope is worth it. Victoria is worth it. Justice is worth it. She paused. You're worth it. Nathan turned to face her, and in the moonlight, Emily saw tears glistening in his eyes. Emily, He struggled to find the words. When this is over, when Hope is safe and Harrington is finished. Yes, I want you to stay, not just as Hope's caretaker, not just as a friend. He cupped her face in his rough hands. I want you to stay as my wife. I want us to be a family. A real family. Emily's breath caught. Nathan, I know I'm not much. A broken-down cowboy with a burnt-out heart and too many nightmares. But these past weeks with you and Hope, I've felt alive again. I've felt hope again. His voice dropped to a whisper. I love you, Emily. I should have said it sooner. I should have. Emily silenced him with a kiss. It was soft, at first tentative, like two people who had forgotten what the tenderness felt like. Then Nathan's arms went around her, and Emily pressed closer, and for one perfect moment there was no Harrington, no danger, no fear. Just two broken people finding their way back to love. When they finally pulled apart, Emily was crying. Yes, she whispered. When this is over, my answer is yes. They held each other in the darkness, drawing strength from a love neither of them had expected to find. Tomorrow would bring battle. Tomorrow would bring danger. But tonight they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. The assault on the Harrington mansion began at dusk. Nathan, Turner, and Morrison rode up to the front gate and demanded an audience with the judge. The guards were suspicious, but Morrison still wore his sheriff's badge, and they eventually agreed to escort the three men to the main house. Judge Harrington received them in his study, a glass of whiskey in hand, surrounded by four of his armed men. He looked supremely confident, like a spider welcoming flies into his web. "Gentlemen," he said, gesturing for them to sit, "I assume you've come to discuss terms of surrender." "We've come to discuss the truth," Nathan said, "about what you did to your granddaughter, about what you've done to your daughter, about all the lives you've destroyed over the years." Harrington laughed. The truth is that I am Judge Edward Harrington. I built this county. I employ half the people in it. I am the law." His eyes narrowed. "And you are nothing but a washed-up cowboy, a lovesick stable boy, and a sheriff who just ended his career." "The truth has a way of coming out," Morrison said quietly, "no matter how powerful you are." "Does it?" Harrington smiled. "Let me tell you something about truth, Sheriff. The truth is whatever I say it is. The truth is what the newspapers print, and I own the newspapers. The truth is what the courts decide, and I own the courts." He leaned forward. "By this time next week, that baby will be back under my control. My daughter will be locked away in an asylum, and the three of you will be rotting in prison for kidnapping and conspiracy." While Harrington was delivering his speech, Emily and Victoria were slipping through the shadows at the back of the mansion. The servants' entrance was unlocked just as Victoria had predicted. Most of the staff had been sent away for the evening, leaving only a skeleton crew to attend to the judge's needs. "The office is on the second floor," Victoria whispered. "Follow me." They crept through darkened hallways, their footsteps silent on the thick carpets. Victoria knew every corner of this house, every creaky floorboard, to avoid every servant's schedule. She had spent 22 years as a prisoner here. Now that knowledge would be her weapon. The office door was closed but not locked. Victoria eased it open and they slipped inside. The room was exactly as Victoria remembered. Bookshelves lining the walls, a massive oak desk dominating the center, and there behind a portrait of her mother, the safe that held all of her father's secrets. "Keep watch," Victoria whispered to Emily. "I'll get the records." She lifted the portrait off the wall, revealing the steel safe beneath. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the combination. Her mother's birthday, April 15th, 1822. Click. The safe swung open. Inside were stacks of papers, bundles of cash, and most importantly, a black leather ledger. Victoria grabbed the ledger and flipped it open. Page after page of transactions, each one recorded in her father's meticulous handwriting. Bribes paid to judges, payments to silence witnesses, and there on a page dated 9 months ago, an entry that made her blood freeze. December 15th, paid to F. Dawkins for disposal of problem, $200. She had found it. Proof that her father had paid to have her daughter killed. "Victoria, hurry!" Emily's voice was tight with fear. "I hear someone coming." Victoria stuffed the ledger into her dress and was reaching to close the safe when the lights blazed on. Judge Harrington stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand. "Did you really think I wouldn't know?" His voice was cold as ice. "I've had guards watching every entrance since the moment those fools arrived at my gate. This whole negotiation was a distraction, wasn't it? Very clever." He aimed the gun at Victoria. "Now give me that ledger." "No." "Victoria." Harrington's patience was wearing thin. "You have already brought enough shame on this family. Do not make things worse." "Shame?" Victoria's voice shook with rage. "You tried to murder my daughter. You beat me. You imprisoned me. You lied to me for 9 months about my own child being dead." She clutched the ledger to her chest. "You are the shame of this family, Father. Not me. Give me the ledger or I will shoot your friend." Harrington swung the gun toward Emily, who stood frozen near the door. Victoria hesitated. The ledger was their only evidence. Without it, Harrington would win. He would take Emma. He would destroy everyone who had tried to help her. But Emily had risked everything for her. Emily had stood by her when she had no one else. Slowly, Victoria began to extend the ledger toward her father. And then the door behind Harrington exploded inward. Nathan burst through, tackling the judge before he could fire. The gun went flying across the room. The two men crashed to the floor, grappling for control. Turner was right behind him, followed by Morrison. The sounds of fighting erupted from downstairs as well. The plan had fallen apart, but they were all here now, all fighting for the same thing. Harrington was old, but he was strong, and he fought with the desperation of a man who knew his empire was crumbling. He grabbed a letter opener from the floor and slashed at Nathan's arm. Blood sprayed across the carpet. Nathan grunted in pain but did not let go. He pinned Harrington to the floor, one hand around the judge's wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon. "It's over," Nathan growled. "You've lost." "I never lose." Harrington spat in his face. "I am Judge Edward Harrington. I am—" "You are under arrest." Sheriff Morrison stood over them, handcuffs in hand. His face was bruised from fighting Harrington's guards, but his voice was steady. "Edward Harrington, you are under arrest for a conspiracy to commit murder or assault, false imprisonment, and corruption." Morrison snapped the handcuffs around the judge's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." As Harrington was dragged to his feet, he looked at Victoria one last time. His eyes were filled with hatred so pure it seemed to darken the air around him. "You will regret this," he hissed. "You are my daughter, my blood. You are nothing without me." "No, father." Victoria's voice was calm, stronger than it had ever been. "I am the mother of Emma Grace. That is the only thing that matters now." In the days before the trial, Morrison sent word to every sheriff in 3 states looking for Frank Dawkins. The man had vanished like smoke, but Morrison knew that guilt had a way of eating at a man's soul. Somewhere out there, Dawkins was running from more than the law. He was running from himself. The trial took place 1 week later in the federal courthouse in Austin. The courtroom was packed from wall to wall. Reporters from newspapers across the state jostled for position. Townspeople from Redemption filled the gallery, whispering among themselves about the downfall of the most powerful man in 3 counties. Judge William Porter, a stern-faced man with silver hair and eyes sharp as razors, presided over the proceedings. He had waited years for this moment, years to bring Edward Harrington to justice. Now finally he had the evidence and the witnesses he needed. The prosecution's case was devastating. First came Victoria, who told the story of her imprisonment, her beating, and the lie her father had told about her daughter's death. She wept as she described hearing her baby cry, then waking to be told the child was gone. The jury listened in horrified silence. Then came Maggie Thompson. Sheriff Morrison had tracked her down in New Mexico and personally guaranteed her safety if she returned to testify. She had agreed without hesitation. She described overhearing the conversation between Harrington and Frank Dawkins. She quoted the judge's exact words. "That child is better off dead than bringing shame to this family." Nathan testified about finding hope in the crate by Willow Creek. He described her cracked lips, her blistered skin, the way she had reached for him and whispered "Mama" with her dying breath. Several members of the jury wiped tears from their eyes. Turner testified about his relationship with Victoria, about being threatened by Harrington, about being forced to leave everything he loved. Emily testified about caring for Hope, about the baby's recovery, about the threats Harrington had made to take her away. And through it all, Harrington sat at the defense table, his face a mask of contempt. His lawyers objected to everything, tried every legal trick in the book, but Judge Porter was unmoved. The evidence was overwhelming. Then on the 3rd day of the trial, the courtroom door swung open. A man walked in, thin, dirty, haggard, looking like he had not slept in weeks. But Nathan recognized him instantly from the descriptions Maggie had given. Frank Dawkins. "Your Honor," Dawkins' voice echoed through the suddenly silent courtroom. "I would like to give testimony." Harrington's face went white. "Who are you?" Judge Porter asked. "My name is Frank Dawkins." The man walked slowly toward the witness stand, his shoulders hunched with shame. "And I am the man Judge Harrington paid to kill his granddaughter." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Spectators gasped and murmured. Judge Porter banged his gavel repeatedly until order was restored. Dawkins took the stand and was sworn in. His hands trembled as he placed them on the Bible. "I was supposed to take the baby far away," he said, his voice breaking. "Make sure she disappeared forever. Judge Harrington paid me $200. He said the baby was better off dead than it bringing scandal to his family." "Why didn't you do it?" the prosecutor asked. Dawkins began to cry. "I couldn't. I picked her up and she looked at me with those big blue eyes and I couldn't." He wiped his face with a dirty sleeve. "So I left her in a crate by the creek. I told myself someone would find her. I told myself she would be okay. But the truth is I left her there to die because I was too much of a coward to do it with my own hands and too much of a coward to save her." "Why are you here now?" Judge Porter asked quietly. "Because I couldn't sleep," Dawkins said, his voice breaking. "Every night I saw that baby's face. Every night I heard her crying in that crate. I tried to run from it, moved 3 towns over, changed my name, started drinking to forget." He wiped his eyes. "But when I heard she survived, when I heard there was a trial, I knew God was giving me one chance to make it right. I deserve prison. I deserve worse. But that little girl deserves the truth." Dawkins looked directly at Harrington. "That man paid me to murder a baby, his own granddaughter, and I've been running from that truth for 9 months. But I'm done running." He pointed a shaking finger at Harrington. "I'm guilty. I deserve whatever punishment the law gives me. But he gave the order. He paid the money. He wanted that child dead. And the world needs to know what kind of monster he really is." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Porter looked at Harrington, then at the jury, then back at the shaking figure on the witness stand. "I've heard enough," he said. "The jury will now deliberate." The deliberation took less than 2 hours. When the jury filed back in, their faces told the story before a single word was spoken. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Porter asked. The foreman stood. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find the defendant?" "Guilty." "On the charge of assault?" "Guilty." "On the charge of false imprisonment?" "Guilty." "On the charge of bribery and corruption of public officials?" "Guilty." Judge Porter nodded solemnly. "Edward Harrington, please rise." The once powerful judge stood slowly, his face gray, his hands shaking in their handcuffs. "You have disgraced the bench," Porter said, his voice ringing with righteous anger. "You have used your position and power to terrorize your own family. You conspired to murder an innocent child, your own flesh and blood. You have lied to this court and corrupted the very system of justice you were sworn to uphold." He leaned forward. "I hereby sentence you to 20 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. May God have mercy on your soul, because history certainly will not." Harrington tried to speak, tried to protest, but the bailiffs were already leading him away. As he passed Victoria, he stopped and glared at her with pure hatred. "You've destroyed everything I built." Victoria met his gaze without flinching. "No, Father, you destroyed this family a long time ago. I'm just finally free of it." Harrington was dragged out of the courtroom, his protest echoing down the hall until they finally faded into silence. It was over. The monster had been defeated, and hope was safe. 6 months later, the town of Redemption gathered for a wedding. It was a simple ceremony at the small church on Main Street. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate. Just two people who had found each other in the darkness and decided to walk together into the light. Nathan stood at the altar, looking more uncomfortable in his Sunday best than he had ever looked facing down armed men. Turner stood beside him, as best man, grinning at his friend's obvious nervousness. "Relax," Turner whispered. "She's not going to run away." "I know, Nathan swallowed hard. "I never thought I'd be here again. After Rachel would want you to be happy." Turner put a hand on his shoulder. "She would love Emily. She would love how Emily loves Hope." Nathan nodded, blinking back unexpected tears. Then the church doors opened and everything else faded away. Emily walked down the aisle in a simple white dress that the town seamstress had made as a gift. Her auburn hair was loose around her shoulders, dotted with wildflowers. She was beautiful, not with the flashy beauty of city women, but with the warm, genuine beauty of someone who knew how to love and how to fight. Beside her, Hope toddled along, carrying a basket of flower petals and throwing them with more enthusiasm than accuracy. The congregation laughed as petals landed on heads and in laps and everywhere except on the floor. When Hope spotted Nathan, she broke free from Emily and ran toward him. "Oh, Papa, Papa!" Nathan scooped her up with one arm, holding her against his chest as Emily reached the altar. The baby immediately grabbed his nose, making everyone laugh again. "Couldn't wait, could you?" Nathan murmured. Hope just grinned her toothless grin. The preacher cleared his throat. "Shall we proceed?" Emily laughed, her eyes shining. "This seems about right, the three of us together." The ceremony was short and sweet. When the preacher asked if anyone objected, Hope shouted "no," so loudly that the whole church erupted in laughter. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Nathan pulled Emily close and kissed her, while Hope clapped and cheered between them. "I love you," Emily whispered against his lips. "I love you too, both of you." The reception was held in the church hall. Victoria and Turner danced together, finally able to love each other openly after years of secrecy and separation. Dr. Shaw made a toast that went on far too long, but nobody minded. Even Sheriff Morrison showed up looking lighter and happier than anyone had seen him in years. "Heard Harrington got transferred to a federal prison in Kansas," Morrison told Nathan quietly. "He'll die behind bars." "Good. His empire is crumbling. People are coming forward every day with stories about what he did to them. Debts he collected illegally, land he stole, lives he ruined." Morrison shook his head. "Hard to believe one man could cause so much pain." "He's not causing pain anymore. That's what matters." As the sun set, Nathan stood on the church steps with Emily beside him and Hope asleep in his arms. Victoria and Turner had already said their goodnights, heading home to the small house they had built on the edge of town with money from the sale of the Harrington mansion. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Cole?" Nathan asked. Emily smiled up at him. "I've been ready my whole life." They walked together through the quiet streets, a family bound not by blood, but by something stronger, by choice, by sacrifice, by love. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the day Nathan found Hope by Willow Creek, the whole family gathered for a celebration. The ranch had been rebuilt. The new house was bigger than the old one, with an extra bedroom and a wide porch that looked out over the green hills. The drought had finally broken and rain had returned to the land, bringing life back to the grass and filling the creeks to overflowing. Emily was expecting their second child, a boy, according to Dr. Shaw. They had already decided to name him Samuel after Nathan's first son. When Emily suggested it, Nathan had cried for the first time in years, tears of healing rather than grief. Victoria and Turner had their own good news. Victoria was 3 months pregnant, and Hope, now called Emma Grace by her birth parents, would soon have a sibling. That afternoon, they all sat on the porch, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Emma Grace, nearly 3 years old, now climbed into Nathan's lap and demanded her favorite story. "Tell it, Papa. Tell the story about the creek." "You know that story by heart, little one. Tell it again." Nathan smiled the smile that Emily said she loved best, the one that lit up his whole face and erased years of sorrow. "Once upon a time," he began, "there was a cowboy who thought he had lost everything worth living for. He worked hard and kept to himself and tried not to think about what his life could have been." "Then what?" Emma Grace asked, even though she knew every word. "Then one hot summer day, he was riding by the creek when he heard a sound. A tiny voice calling for help. He followed the sound and found a baby in a box. A perfect little girl with big blue eyes and the strongest spirit he had ever seen. She had been left there to die, but she refused to give up. She was fighting to live." "That was me," Emma Grace announced proudly. "That was you. And when that cowboy held you in his arms for the first time, something changed inside him. He realized he wasn't empty after all. He just hadn't found the right person to love yet." Emily came to sit beside them, one hand resting on her rounded belly. "Tell her the ending," she said softly. Nathan kissed the top of Emma Grace's head. "The cowboy took that baby home, and along the way he found something he never expected. He found a woman who taught him how to hope again. He found friends who stood by him when times got hard. And he found out that family isn't about blood or names or where you come from. What's it about, Papa?" Nathan looked at Emily, at Emma Grace, at the life he had built from the ashes of everything he had lost. "Family is about who you choose to love and who chooses to love you back." Emma Grace nodded seriously, like this was the most important wisdom in the world. "I choose you, Papa. I choose you too, little one. Always and forever." She fell asleep in his arms, safe and loved and home. Victoria and Turner had already taken their leave, walking hand in hand back to their cottage. Dr. Shaw had headed into town, promising to check on Emily again next week. Morrison had stopped by earlier to share news that Frank Dawkins had received a reduced sentence for his testimony and was trying to rebuild his life somewhere far away. Now it was just Nathan, Emily, and the sleeping child who had brought them together. "I should put her to bed," Emily said softly. "In a minute." Nathan held Emma Grace closer, breathing in the sweet smell of her hair, feeling the warm weight of her against his chest. "I just want to stay here a little longer." Emily leaned against his shoulder, and they watched the last rays of sunlight fade from the sky. Do you ever think about them? Emily asked quietly. Rachel and Samuel. Every day. Nathan's voice was calm, peaceful. But it doesn't hurt the way it used to. I think they would be happy for me. For us. I think so too. Nathan looked up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, he believed Rachel was smiling. Samuel was playing in fields of endless green. They were at peace, and now finally so was he. I never thought I'd have this again, he said softly. A family, a home, a reason to wake up in the morning. Neither did I. Emily took his hand. But here we are. Here we are. Emma Grace stirred in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible before settling back down. Nathan adjusted his hold on her, marveling, as he always did, at how perfectly she fit in his arms. She saved me, he said. That day by the creek. I thought I was saving her, but really she was saving me. Maybe you saved each other. Nathan considered that. A dying baby and a broken man both reaching out in their moment of greatest need, finding each other against all odds. Maybe we did. Emily stood and stretched. Come on, cowboy. Bring our daughter inside. Tomorrow's another day. Our daughter. The words still filled Nathan with wonder every time he heard them. Not his daughter. Not her daughter. Their daughter. The child they had chosen together, loved together, fought for together. He carried Emma Grace into the house, through the cozy living room with its comfortable furniture and warm fireplace, into the bedroom they had painted pale yellow because Emily said it reminded her of sunshine. He laid the sleeping child in her bed, pulled the blankets up to her chin, and stood watching her for a long moment. Her face was peaceful, her breathing deep and steady. She had no memory of the crate by the creek, no memory of the sun burning her skin or the thirst cracking her lips. All she knew was love, and that was exactly as it should be. Emily slipped her hand into his. Ready for bed? Yeah. Nathan took one last look at his daughter, at the miracle that had brought light back into his darkness. Yeah, I'm ready. They walked to their own room hand in hand, leaving the door open just a crack so they could hear if Emma Grace called out in the night. As Nathan lay down beside his wife, he thought about the long road that had brought him here, the fire that had taken everything, the 8 years of grief and isolation. The moment he heard a baby crying in the wilderness, and everything changed. He had been given a second chance, a chance to love again, a chance to be a father again, a chance to build something beautiful from the ashes of his past, and he had not wasted it. Nathan, Emily's voice was sleepy in the darkness. Yeah, I'm happy. He pulled her close, feeling her warmth against him, feeling the new life growing inside her. Me too, he whispered. For the first time in a long time, me too. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly across the Texas sky. The creek that had once run dry now flowed full and clear. The land that had been parched and dying was green again, full of new growth. And in a small ranch house on a hill, a family slept peacefully. A cowboy who had lost everything and found it again. A school teacher who had learned to love once more. A little girl who had been thrown away and discovered she was priceless. They were not perfect. Life was not perfect. There would be hard days ahead, challenges and sorrows and struggles, but they would face them together, because that is what family does. And Nathan Cole, the man who had spent 8 years believing his heart was dead, finally understood the truth. Love never really dies. It just waits sometimes, for years, sometimes through unimaginable darkness, until the moment you are ready to reach out and take hold of it again. He had reached out on a burning July day beside a dying creek, and hope had reached back.